Hey everybody, welcome to the Vortex Edge podcast. Jimmy here on the mic, and across from me we have Instructor Corey, Mr. Corey Eliason, one of the guys here on staff at Vortex Edge. If you come take a class with us, he might be a face you see quite often, especially when the topic is long-range shooting. Corey, you and Justin, who's another guy people will be seeing around here, you guys are kind of our main snipers, so to speak. I'm throwing air quotes out there. Of course, Chris likes to get thrown into that mix a little bit too. You guys will all get to know these folks. We're only on our first couple episodes of the Vortex Edge podcast here, but this is a really unique opportunity to get to know more about the instructors here and hear from them some really great information. So Corey, we'll have you, why not introduce yourself? Because I actually don't even think you've gotten the chance to be on the main Vortex Nation podcast. Who are you? And since, this is the first time hearing you.
Yeah, okay. I'll just introduce myself like I do in classes, I guess. So my name's Corey Eliason. I've been with Vortex for a couple of years. I got my start in the Marine Corps. I was a scout sniper. I was only in for about 4 years. After I got out, I spent about 10 years overseas contracting, doing security contracting for roughly 10 years, mostly in support of Department of State operations. And then I got sick of the Middle East and found my way back home and landed a job here at Vortex. And I'm loving it, and I like what I do here, and I enjoy training with all of you out there. So just looking forward to this podcast and everything else.
Cool. Yeah, great opportunity for you to meet some folks, or at least get to talk to some folks who may not get the chance to come out right away. Hopefully you do come out someday. But Corey, the topic at hand today, anybody who's clicked on this video or this link already is probably aware. We're going to talk about long-range ammo specifically. Yep. Now, this is going to be more of, we'll call it kind of a 101 level, I'd say. It may dive into some topics that are a little bit more in-depth than maybe some people just starting out would be thinking about right away, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I think the reason we want to talk about this, Corey, you guys see it in our long-range classes. We have a long-range pipeline, long-range 1, 2, and 3. And what we see happen from time to time is folks will show up and they've got the wrong ammunition. We'll get into what the, quote, wrong ammunition for a long-range class is and long-range shooting is. They've got maybe a mixed bag of ammunition. Sometimes it's actually literally in a bag, which is just a hair concerning. And they wind up being a little bit frustrated with the performance of the ammunition of the rifle, and it winds up it throws a lot more variables into play, I think, where you can't always tell, hey, is this something that you did at the gun as the shooter, or is this really just an ammo problem that we're seeing downrange? Is that why you didn't hit the target? Is that why our groups are bigger than we want them to be? Because ultimately, when we are shooting long range, it's so important, so critical to have everything be as accurate, as precise as possible, as consistent as possible. So what do you look for when you have students coming out for a class? What do you look for and what do you recommend to people when it comes to the ammo they bring along with?
So I'm kind of glad we're doing this just because we do get a mixed bag. Some people bring a lot of good stuff. Some people, they do kind of have the party mix of ammunition.
And that's what we call it, the party mix.
Yeah, and it's a little hard to drill down to what the problem is when that happens. So ideally, what we tell students, what we have on our website is we want match-grade ammunition, and there's kind of different levels of explanation into what that exactly is. On the face of it is just like this box back here. We have Hornady Match. This is the 6.5 Creedmoor ELDMs. But we would like ammunition similar to this, and we don't necessarily want just going to the store and grabbing whatever you see off the shelf and taking that with you. That'll only get you so far, and it might lead to headaches. And there's only so much we can do for a person when the ammunition can only perform so well at certain distances. So at a minimum, we do require or would like to see match grade ammunition versus just the store-bought stuff. And the reason we want match grade ammunition is just because when we go to the store and buy ammunition, just, off the shelf, putting no thought into it, just whatever's there is there, and you grab it, and you take that box home and you shoot it out of your rifle or your pistol or whatever. That's kind of mass produced, and the controls for that aren't as tight, and the quality isn't as tight as something like a box of match grade ammunition is held to, or is supposed to be held to a higher echelon or quality control.
Yeah.
And that's going to help minimize the variation that we're going to see.
Yeah, and I think what we see quite often is people getting a little bit frustrated when they are newer to this, because they go and get a rifle, and of course every company that sells a product, they want to market their product as being phenomenal. But the trick that we have in the firearms industry is that our scopes, Vortex optics, our scopes, we want to make them to be as accurate as possible. We want to tell people that these are capable of, achieving the accuracy and the consistency that you need to hit targets wherever you need to hit targets. Well, our scope has to work with a rifle that we don't make. And the people who make the rifle are going to be building it to a certain quality level that they need to do the same thing we're trying to achieve, and then same thing with the ammo, but they're going to make it to sell to somebody who's using ammo that maybe they don't make. And that becomes really difficult, because us as an optics company, we're hoping whoever gets our optic understands that in order for the optic to perform to its maximum potential, the person has to have a rifle that's halfway decent, and they should also be shooting ammo that's halfway decent, and they should also have taken time and care and effort into mounting the optic proper to the rifle. There's just so many variables that have to finally meet up and match up properly to work correctly. And I think a lot of times people will see, they'll get a rifle, and the rifle's of course been marketed as capable of achieving sub-MOA. And there's always a little fine print of, like when using match-grade ammo and when whatever. But they're thinking, I got this rifle, it said it's sub-MOA. I got it in, say, 6.5 Creedmoor. Everybody online is talking about how accurate 6.5 Creedmoor is. So I don't get it. I went and bought 6.5 Creedmoor ammo. I fed it to the gun. The thing's not shooting right. Something's got to be wrong with this gun. Something's got to be wrong with this scope. And it gets really difficult. You see that quite often.
Right, and that kind of comes down to ignorance is not bliss in this case. So, and there's a lot to it. So, trying to explain everything at this stage in beginning shooters development isn't necessarily. It's not going to work that way. It needs to be fed to them in small doses. So, kind of taking the big picture and drilling it down to why that is. And I'm glad you brought up the equipment too, because a lot of people we see this in the classes too sometimes, is a lot of people get sucked into, this is a really nice rifle, this is a really nice optic, and they kind of what it seems like they put a lot of thought into, purchasing the rifle. They got something good, a quality rifle.
Probably spent a lot of money on it.
A lot of money, yeah, a good quality optic. And then in some cases, not always, but in some cases, maybe they put those two things together with something that maybe it's mounted on a base that's not necessarily the best, or with rings that aren't necessarily match grade themselves. So, just having those two quality things and putting them together with something that's not of the same quality has the potential to cause problems for us. And I try to, and the same thing with ammunition, I try to get students to, I don't like it when people spend a ton of money. I'd rather them, get just quality stuff for cheap if that was possible.
Oh, yeah.
But if you get the quality stuff, it saves a lot of headache in the long run. So if you're going to put a lot of thought into, the rifle that you want to shoot and the optic you want to shoot, I would say bring that thought to, the rings and the bases, and then especially the ammunition, right? Because that's what this is about. And the ammunition is a big one too, because that plays into a lot of into our average muzzle velocity, which is an important variable that we use for several things, and it helps us to reach those longer distance targets. And it also helps to minimize the variation that we might see otherwise with just a random go to the store and grab something off the shelf and feed it into my rifle. I'm going to see much different results, probably with a lot more variation than if I were to put some time and effort and spend a little bit more money and get the match grade stuff, feed that into my rifle. I'm going to see a little less variation, which is going to help me hit my targets more efficiently out to distance. And that helps us help them
it does.
A lot more efficiently.
So, we've brought up the term match grade ammo here, and conveniently, our friends at Hornady, very, very nice job, guys. This says match on the box. You can't miss it. The nice thing about this is it's not just Hornady. There's other manufacturers that make match-grade ammunition that's really, really nice. But, I appreciate the fact that ammo of this quality, which it is very, very nice ammunition. This is stuff I've used personally. I've used in competition. I know, Corey, you've used this stuff plenty of times in your instruction and in other various applications. You can get ammo of this quality that you don't have to load yourself. And I think probably there's still, and hopefully I think it's kind of being phased out now, this old way of thinking. But it was kind of like, yeah, the factory ammunition, no matter what you get, back in the day, used to be kind of a toss-up. And if you really wanted to get accurate stuff, you had to load it yourself. Now, I think there still is a lot of people into reloading, and there still are plenty of people who do it and achieve better results with all of their specific little tweaks and changes and things like that for their exact rifle and their exact application, who are getting better results. But ultimately, we have really good ammo available to us. So this match grade stuff for our long range purposes, for precision shooting out at distance, is excellent. I think just for those who are newer to this thing, Corey, maybe you can also explain the fact that there are different types of ammo. It's not exactly, as a newer shooter, something that's really intuitive. Because again, like I said, you go and you buy the rifle, it claims it's very accurate. And you buy it in a caliber. I'm going to keep using 6.5 Creedmoor because it's easy nowadays, especially. You buy it in a caliber like 6.5 Creedmoor, which everybody says is basically a magical laser beam, and then you're like, wait, I'm not done yet. I can't just feed it anything. Like now, there's different kinds of ammo. Like, what if I wanted to go hunting with it? Do I still use match ammo, or now I want to go shooting long range with it? There's this ammo that I got, because I got it in the fall and it's got a white-tailed deer on it. Why can't I shoot this long range? Maybe you can go into some of the differences that people actually like, just so they are aware.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes we can achieve good results with just, the stuff you bought off the shelf at the closer distances. So I think a person's application is definitely going to play into it. But I do know people, or have seen people with that school of thought where they think, even though it has match grade on the box, they think it's going to be like a Cracker Jack box of whatever you get. You never know. So there is different types of ammunition that we need to think about as far as match grade versus just the standard factory stuff, and that's going to play into our performance. But then also there's something just I like to refer to as rifle ammo sensitivity. So like you're using 6.5 Creedmoor, so we'll use that as kind of the example here. But if I feed it 140 ELDs and I can only hold a group that maybe is unacceptable to what I think the rifle can do and what I think I can do, I can go and I can grab different boxes of ammo just in short quantities, just 20, maybe 40 rounds at a pop, and feed it through my gun and just see how and record the information about how that ammunition behaves into my rifle and optic setup. And through that data collection, I can kind of see the trends of, okay, the Hornady stuff is really working for me. Maybe Remington isn't really doing as well as I wanted it to, or Nosler, maybe that one's beating them both, or something like that. I can start to see these trends. Mm-hmm. And when I see a certain ammunition, whatever it might be, I want to keep that consistent, say, okay, these Hornady 140 grain ELDMs, they really, my rifle and optic, my rifle setup really likes them. Okay, I'm shooting really well with them, hold tight groups. Okay, then I want to go and I want to try buy all that ammunition in bulk, right? I don't want to, buy 20 or 40 rounds here and then maybe wait a little bit and buy 20 or 40 rounds. Even if it's the same stuff, you want the same lot, right? We want that bulk, that consistency. Because the ammunition manufacturers, they change things from time to time too. And the name of the game here with the long-range shooting stuff is just consistency. So when we're buying in bulk, we test that ammunition, it's working good. Okay, I have a bulk of ammunition that I've tested, I know works good out of my rifle, and then I can go and gather data and information on that. And that's one variable that I don't have to worry about, right? I know the ammunition is working in my setup.
I see what you're getting at, right? So, yeah, I think that's another thing that a lot of people go in not realizing. And you can actually find that info on the box, so the lot, Corey kind of explained it. But, yeah, manufacturers tend to they'll make 6.5 Creedmoor, like, boom, a bunch all at once. And then they might switch to making something else, and then they'll go back to 6.5 Creedmoor later, and they make a whole bunch. And those are those lots. And each time they do it, it might be slightly different, right? So, if you go and you find a type of ammunition that your rifle really likes, that it's shooting well, real tight groups at 100 yards, if you're chronographing it, it's shooting with small or low standard deviation. It's not all over the place in terms of muzzle velocity, so it's pretty consistent. Yeah, I think, Corey, maybe you could even point out where it is on here, but if you do buy in bulk, you will likely find that you'll get a lot of ammo, or hopefully all of your ammo, from the same lot from the factory. So therefore, even within... We've whittled it down. We found the type of ammo that our rifle likes the most, and now we're going to find one lot of it specifically that's all hopefully really, really close to the same. And we're going to buy a whole lot of that so we can keep it on hand, and ideally our rifle then will be very predictable over the course of all of our shooting. I found this. I used to think the whole lot thing was kind of like oh my gosh, like these snipers, they're so annoying and fastidious. Until one day when I randomly grabbed some ammo from here at the range to go to a competition. I had some in my pack too, and I'm like, oh, this is great. All I need is like 3 boxes from the range to supplement what I've got in my pack. And we ran them over a chronograph just to be safe when we got there because I was seeing some weird results. And one of the guys was like, well, what are those from different lots? And I'm like, dude, come on. Like, let's be serious here. And he's like, no, seriously, are they? He's like, let's run them over a chronograph. We ran couple rounds over the chronograph from one lot and a couple rounds over the chronograph from a different lot. Same ammo, same gun, same everything. 100 feet per second difference overall. Really? If you average it out, 100 feet per second. Yeah, like, it's huge. Yeah.
That's
and it was match ammo.
Yeah, that'll cause some mistakes too, especially if you're doing extended range shooting and things like that. So on this particular box, the lot's just right there. It's probably hard to see, just stamped on there. Mm-hmm. But that obviously changes. But yeah, it's important, and it's just any variation. They're manufacturers too, and they follow a process, and sometimes the process might get. There might be errors in the process, and maybe they have to write a lot number off as, oh yeah, we made a mistake then, and we have to fix that, or something like that.
Sure.
But the point is like, obviously they're following a process, and we want to know exactly what we have, and we do that by tracking all of this information, and it can even be, even if we get match grade ammunition, say, okay, you guys want us to buy match grade ammunition, we go out, we do that. But you do it with different lot numbers. Like that's one point that could cause inconsistency. Maybe it won't, but there's a chance that it will, and we want to try to avoid that altogether. And some people, it doesn't happen a lot, but they'll get the match grade stuff, but maybe they'll buy different manufacturer type of ammunition or different grain weights of bullets. So the bullet weights will be different, and that's going to play into differences of results downrange. So, and we're just trying to oversimplify things so that we can drill down to some, fundamental variables and fix those as shooters, as instructors. We're doing that for our students. So the less that we have to worry about, is it the ammunition or what is it? If all of that is quality stuff and we're like, okay, that looks good. I don't think it's the ammo. I don't think it's the gun, optic, all this stuff. So we can drill down and figure out what the problems are and fix them, and then get them on their way a lot quicker in that manner.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the tough things, and I think it just shows how if you want to be really, I'd say if you really want to take this whole shooting thing and the precision shooting and all that, if you really want to take it, I'll say seriously, and not to be, seriously, like we all have to be, furrowing our brows and going around grumpy all the time. But if you really want to take it seriously, there is some work you have to put into it. And it's kind of one of the frustrating things at times where, let's say you finally get a good long range round, or, a whole lot of ammo, you buy it in bulk, you're like, oh man, like, I finally got all this figured out. I'm shooting accurately. Well, now you want to go hunting with that gun. And maybe your bullet that is in, this match grade ammo, for the game that you want to go hunt, you've deemed that you'd like to use a different type of bullet, which is yet another thing that I think newer shooters aren't always familiar with. A match grade style of ammunition is usually going to be a cup and core, a lead core bullet with a thin jacket, which for some, they may opt to or want to go with something that's a little bit more sturdily constructed. If sturdily is a word. Sturdily constructed, I'll just say. It's sturdy, right? They might want to go with something like that for the game that they're after. Well, now you may be switching grain weights, you may be switching manufacturers, and you got to kind of go through the whole test all over again and try and figure out what it is that your rifle likes. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure you find that. I see you testing ammo all the time down here.
Yeah, I'm just curious too. You know, they put match grade on there, so, and we have the tools and stuff here to test that. So I like to see for myself, and it's curious, and it's kind of cool to see the numbers. I'm not a huge numbers guy, but I do like to pick through that stuff. But yeah, that's definitely a good point too. So I'm huge on application, because a lot of people come to these classes and they have different reasons for, you know, wanting to get into long range. Some of it is, I just want to become a better shooter recreationally and shoot at targets at distance. Or some of them are on, you know, a mission because they're going out hunting west. So they have this very specific application that they're going to put this stuff to use on. So I always try to speak or remember that I'm speaking to people with a specific application.
Right.
And all of this should be derived, a person's decisions and, you know, the ammunition selection should be built off of, you know, what is your application? What are you doing this for? And what is the best decision or ammunition for you to buy, given your application? So I think that's important for people to keep in mind in this process. But with the hunting, so let's just say, you know, in Wisconsin here, you know, I know we say it all the time, but let's just say like 50 yards to maybe 200 yards.
That's pretty
shot in Wisconsin. And so in that case, you know, the bullet's carrying quite a bit of energy. You know, all the major hunting rounds, I don't think you're really going to have to worry too much about the bullet having enough energy when it reaches the target, you know, 200 and in. I think that's going to be okay, unless if you're using something on the smaller side that's non-typical. So, you know, let's say that the bullet does have enough energy, then it kind of comes down to design, right? Well, before design, we actually have to hit the target. So, you know, make sure your fundamentals of marksmanship are, So Pete brought that up in class the other day. He's like, you actually have to hit the target before these bullet designs actually come into play. So, which is a good point. Yeah,
leave it to Pete, unfortunately, to sometimes make a good point that we have to. Okay, good point, Pete.
Yeah, I don't like it either. All right. But yeah, so we have to hit our target. But after we put all that stuff into place and we're ready to go, we can hit our target. Then, you know, the bullet design is important. So if we're carrying enough energy to the target, it really is going to depend. We don't really want something necessarily that's going to just punch right through it like a laser beam, and then maybe it's not going to do enough damage internally and the animal could run off, maybe die somewhere else. Maybe we never find it or something like that. So we want a bullet that, well, hunters would like a bullet that carries enough energy to the target and it can actually penetrate it and then cause significant amount of damage or enough damage to kill the animal efficiently and ethically, right? And that's really going to come down to bullet designs. And there's several different bullet designs out there. There's bonded, there's partition rounds, there's, you know, they have the cup and core stuff too, and like the soft point bullets out there. So it really is on the individual to kind of consider where they're going to be hunting. You know, so I mentioned Wisconsin, we'll see stuff 200 yards and in or so. So we're carrying enough energy there. But say we want to go west. Maybe we'll look at, or we're kind of planning for shooting a target maybe out 500 yards or so. Then we might want to kind of drill down to the efficiencies of our bullet. And that's where stuff like the long range shooting can really come in handy, because we talk a lot about that stuff. We try to educate the students on all of these statistics and variables as far as how they play into our shooting at long range. And that's going to come into bullet design in a different way. So talking about aerodynamics. So we want our bullet to reach our target with enough energy, but when a bullet is efficiently aerodynamically designed, it carries that energy further because it's not working as hard to get to the target.
Okay, makes sense, right?
Yeah, there's not as much
slipping through the air more effortlessly.
Right, it's kind of cutting through the air a little bit better than something else where, you know, something like a flat base bullet that isn't really considered to be as aerodynamic as the longer range bullets. It's going to have more drag and things working against it, so it's going to work a little bit harder to get to those targets. When a bullet works harder to get to those targets, it starts to slow down, it loses energy, and that's going to play into how it affects that target if we actually hit it. Like, how is it going to take it? How is it going to penetrate it? And then how is that bullet going to expand if it does when it hits that target and cause devastation, or is it going to punch right through it? So all of those things are going to play into that. So I would say as far as the long range shooting and the match grade stuff goes, that plays into it. So we want a bullet that's aerodynamically efficient and can reach the target with enough energy, but then we also want a bullet that when it reaches that target to cause significant amount of damage and ethically take that animal, whatever it might be. So those are some things to kind of think about as a shooter, and there's things that we can turn to pick apart the suitability for a bullet to do that. As far as, I'm going to probably name off some things that people aren't really familiar with, but there's ballistic coefficient. I feel like enough people should be
BC.
Failure familiar with that anyways. But there's BC, and then just kind of looking at the weight of the bullet too, because the BC isn't everything. A bullet with a good amount of weight, you'll find that the longer range bullets tend to be heavier. So a heavier bullet is usually going to equal a higher ballistic coefficient, and the ballistic coefficient is simply measuring the bullet's efficiency, how efficiently it can actually cut through the air and get to the target, kind of measuring the aerodynamics, I guess, if you will, of a bullet. Mm-hmm. And those are all things we can kind of turn to compare bullets and figure, okay, this bullet is not as efficient as this one, and so on. So we can kind of lay it out in front of us and make our decisions a little bit more informed that way.
For sure. So there you go. I mean, people, you may have not thought that we'd be talking about some hunting stuff here. We do have hunter marksmanship is one of the things we do at Vortex Edge, so maybe that's a topic we can dive further into, because the actual what do they call that? Because there's terminal ballistics of it, which is when the bullet actually impacts the target you're shooting. In a hunting scenario, primarily is what you're concerned about, because usually we're not concerned about killing steel. But that's a whole topic in and of itself. So very much something that we could go into if that's something you're interested in. But Corey, one thing, getting back to kind of, we're talking long range, talking precision, let's kind of go back to assuming steel and shooting paper and trying to get really consistent little tight groups and things like that. You brought up bullet weight a couple times. And this one I feel like we can touch on without going too far in the weeds. But I think it's an important one because, I'll pull a play out of my own playbook from back in the day when I was just starting to shoot some bolt action guns and try to shoot them accurately. I had a 243. It was one of the ones from here at work. And I was going to go shoot it at the range, and I grabbed some random 243 ammo. Somebody's like, yeah, this stuff shoots good, whatever, take this. I mean, that I couldn't hit, and I'm shooting at 100 yards. I couldn't hit anything. I mean, it was terrible. It was all over the map, and of course I'm thinking, like, surely it's not myself. It's not anything that the shooter's doing. It probably was some of that, but actually when we went up to the target, we noticed that some of the holes I was making in the paper weren't round. They were, in fact, up and down keyholes. So I was keyholing, and I didn't have the right bullet. I had too heavy of a bullet, I believe, for the rifle's twist rate. This is something I had no idea was a thing. Yeah. So can you talk about that? Because that's when you get your rifle and you're going to buy ammo and you're thinking, oh, the heavyweight stuff, that's what I want because that shoots better. It may not out of your particular rifle.
Right. And that's a good point, too. I'm glad you brought that up. But I like to do things in small doses, too, because there's so much to it. But I think twist rate is one of those things that's good to introduce to somebody, even if there's people that don't have anything right now. I think twist rate is one of those important aspects because especially if they're shopping for a rifle, like you can kind of gear that towards what ammunition you want to shoot and kind of work things that way. So the twist rate of your rifle is basically, I'll break it down like we have a 24-inch barrel. Let's say it has a 1 in 12-inch twist. That means for every 12 inches of that barrel, the rifling, so the bore, the inside of the bore where you see all the spiraling and lands and grooves, that rifling is twisting one full rotation every 12 inches in a 1 in 12-inch twist rate barrel, right? And then the next 12 inches, it twists another full, right? So 6.5 Creedmoor's a common twist rate for that is 1 in 8. So if we had, 24-inch barrel length again, for every 8 inches, that rifling is doing one full rotation, right? Another 8 inches, another full rotation.
People would describe that as a tighter twist rate, right?
Yep. So the larger the number, the slower the twist rate. The smaller the number, the faster the twist rate.
Faster, yeah, that's right. Tighter, yeah.
Yep. So that's important to us because our bullet, whatever we're shooting, the cartridge is going to require a certain twist rate based off of the weight of bullet that we want to shoot, right? So I shoot 308, or I used to shoot 308 a lot. I'm kind of a fan of it. I like it. There's definitely better options out there, but we'll just use 308 because it's such a common one. But if you're shooting, the 175 grain 308s, that's probably going to, I'll just tell you, the common twist rates for a 308 is, 1 in 10, 1 in 11 and a quarter, and 1 in 12 or so. Right, so between 1 in 10 and 1 in 12 are the common twist rates. So if I want to shoot a heavier bullet, which I would kind of consider the 175s to be a little bit heavier, you're going to want, as a rule of thumb, you're going to want a faster twist rate. So I'd probably want something along the lines of the 1 in 10 to the 1 in 11. Versus if I'm going lighter, maybe the 150s, like a 150 grain bullet, or maybe even 168 grain bullet, you might be able to get away with a slower twist rate. So maybe something like the 1 in 12 might work a little bit better. And what that's doing, what the rifle twist is doing, is stabilizing our bullet in the air. Right? If you think about like a quarterback throwing a football, puts a nice tight spiral on it and hits his receiver. Kind of the same concept, that spiraling is creating more accuracy for us. It's stabilizing the bullet so that we can predict it better. Right?
Yeah.
It's stable, and it should go where we are assuming that it'll go, and it helps in that aspect. So if we have the wrong twist rate, if we just don't pay attention to it at all, and maybe we have too fast of a twist rate, that can start to cause issues for us in the way of stability, and then that's going to make it very hard for us to hit our target, especially at distance, when our bullet's not fully stabilizing. And then when you throw things like environmental factors into it, all those things are just going to work that much more against it and work against us as shooters trying to hit our target.
Right. So yeah, it's just something worth looking into. You'll hopefully know your rifle. And maybe even just something right off the bat there with something as simple as the twist rate, which you can find easily. It probably even says it on the box, in the manual. It certainly says it on the manufacturer's website. Very easy to find. That may already start to steer you in a direction as far as bullet weights and things go when you're shopping around for ammo. And this is something for pretty much every cartridge. You can find it online. People on the forums are talking about it, what their experiences are. You can say, because I have this twist rate, I know I'm probably going to be in this weight range of bullets, so maybe I'll totally nix looking at anything if I'm shooting some 30 cal. I'm not even going to look at the 220 grain 30 cal bullets. I'm not going to bother with those because I don't think I'll be able to stabilize them or something along those lines. It can at least kind of help get you in the neighborhood right away,
right,
and know what to try. But anything else, Corey? I mean, like I said, this is kind of just... We're putting this out there as food for thought for more beginner level shooters to just be like, hey, that's right. Actually, the ammo is something I should pay more attention to. It's not kind of the icing on the cake. I can just go buy whatever if I'm expecting a really, really high level of accuracy and consistency. Anything else, Corey?
I would just kind of reiterate a couple of things, but really what it drills down to is the fundamentals of marksmanship, really. And we're just trying to reduce all of these external things, ammunition, the rifle, optic, any errors in all of our equipment so that we can really drill down to efficiently hit our targets. And the more we can do that, the more we can kind of hone in on, the real error in the equation is always us, the humans. We're making mistakes all the time. So we're trying to fix that and mitigate that. So the more we can kind of, really be sure of our equipment, our rifle, optic, and ammunition, the more we can, trust that and then just hone in and try to really get better at shooting and not be questioning, well, is this really good ammo, or, do I need to explore a little bit more, or do I need to go back to the drawing board? So it just kind of erases some of those questions for us, which makes it much easier and much more enjoyable experience for just shooters in general.
Agreed.
So
agreed. Well, hopefully that helps some people out there. And like we said, we threw a bunch out there. If there's more you'd like us to dive into further on, I'm sure there actually is. definitely drop a comment. So we've got these podcasts on YouTube. We actually have a little video camera here, one single one. If you overhear sounds in the background, that's actually the sounds of a working range. There's a class going on currently while Corey and I are doing this. Luckily, we have 6 full-time instructors here, so there's other instructors taking care of that. But drop us a comment or head over to Instagram. You can hit us up there as well with ideas for topics you'd like to hear. Make sure to say hey to Corey in the comments, all that good stuff. Let us know what you'd like to hear in the future. Maybe even, we got these little patch things here behind us. I don't know, maybe even if you guys got some really awesome patch ideas that you want us to throw up there, let us know that too. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap, everybody. Hope you liked this topic. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and of course, subscribe right here because there's going to be plenty more to come. If there's topics you'd like to hear us go over on the Vortex Edge podcast in the future, you can let us know by commenting below or hitting us up on Instagram, which is @Vortex Edge. We'd love to hear your suggestions so we can be bringing you the kind of episodes and topics that you want to hear. Otherwise, we'll be seeing you on a future episode. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Bye.